Welcome back to this special programme about the fall of the Berlin Wall. It was the soundtrack of a revolution. In the weeks leading up to the fall of the Berlin Wall, one song, called Looking for Freedom, dominated the German pop charts. The singer is known throughout the world as a star of the hit 1980s series Knight Rider and Baywatch. His name, David Hasselhoff. But to the people of Berlin, in 1989, he was the man who sang about freedom. I spoke to him earlier on our trusty sofa. Welcome. 20 years on, this Sunday, what are you going to be doing?
Well, I'll be back at the Berlin Wall to probably give my recollection, maybe sing. I know that on New Year's Eve we're gearing up to recreate the performance because it was such a magical time. My song was #1 for 8 weeks, in like August, September, October, and the wall came down on November 9th, and nobody ever expected it. In fact, I was talking to my promoter when I was there, and we were looking at the wall and looking at the guards up there walking back and forth with their guns, and I said, when do you think the wall will come down? He goes, not in my lifetime. And 2 months later, it came down.
But when you actually picked the song, because it was 6 weeks, 8 weeks ahead, you weren't really thinking of, it was a coincidence rather than a surprise to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was going on tour. My tour was called the Freedom Tour. I actually built a replica of the Berlin Wall. I was on a television show called Knight Rider. So I had my Knight Rider car, which was synonymous with going over walls and crashing through walls. The theme was one man can make a difference, and so it was like this guy from Knight Rider singing about freedom, and my tour was called the Freedom Tour. So, and the car was coming through the wall. I had no idea the wall would come down. I went into East Germany because I was enamored with what was going on there, and I went and interviewed different kids and children who lived there. And there was also a guy named Dean Reed, who was a very famous American who died. And they believe he was killed because he was singing about freedom. 6 weeks after he was on 60 Minutes, he was killed. So I wanted to do his life story. So I went behind the wall, and I met a couple of girls, and I was sitting in this hotel called the Grand Hotel, which was this beautiful hotel, very rich and lots of gold. And all the people outside, like, I'm looking at like a World War II movie. And I said, guys, I can't be interviewed here. I feel like very presumptuous with these people out here, like starving and looking horrible in these terrible little cars. And let's go finish the interview outside. So as I went outside, these two girls came over to me and they, can we have your autograph? And I said, sure. You know me from the talking car? And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, they said, no. And I said, well, how do you know me? They said, you're David Hasselhoff, the American who sings of freedom. And I went, whoa. And they went, I've been looking for freedom. And they started singing my song. So I said, have you ever been to West Berlin? And they said, no, never. So they had been in East Berlin and East Germany their whole life. They said, my great-grandfather was allowed to go out, but we'll never go out until we get older, maybe. And so I went across Checkpoint Charlie, went back. I took a photo with them and talked to the reporter who was with me, and I said, I'll release this picture to you, but it's got to be in the West Berlin paper. And the next day it was on the cover. And the two girls and me from Alexanderplatz, which was just in that clip, I went back through Checkpoint Charlie, and I said, meet me here at 12 o'clock, and they were waiting for me. I gave them the picture, and they just started crying and screaming, and I said, here's a little piece of freedom. And I never thought I'd see them again, and 3 months later, the wall was down.
And I wonder what happened to those two girls you met at Checkpoint Charlie. They're probably in West Germany now.
They probably are. I mean, when I went there, David, there was the day before I went there, they said, would you do a show in one of our studios in East Germany? It's about 25 minutes across the border. I said, sure. So as I got in the car, there was a line of people about 5 miles long waiting in line with their families just to go through Checkpoint Charlie just so they could see West Berlin. As I stopped and said, what are you waiting? We're just going to go out and look and come back.
Thank you so much. David Hasselhoff.
Right. God bless.
A joy to have him with us on his way to Berlin. That was the Hoff, David Hasselhoff. After the break, we'll be joined by the man who caused the first breach in the Iron Curtain, the former Hungarian Prime Minister, Miklos Nemeth.